after seeing that game and watching, Izzo really get out-coached in that game, I have no idea where the strategy came from for playing Ben Carter so much. I mean, yeah, okay, Izzo and his staff, they decided before the game, we're going to attack this zones differently. We're going to put Ben Carter in there at the post. He did all right. I think he maybe hit his first shot or second shot from the free throw line, which is really, that's the weakness in that zone. But the thing that just completely boggles my mind, he kind of didn't have confidence after that and kept kicking it out. Yeah, Michigan State shot terrible from three-point land. They were sucked right into Boeheim's strategy. And how do you not play Jaren Jackson more in that game? How do you not move Jackson or Bridges to the post? You guys break it down for me.
I've heard the whole Bridges thing. Honestly, I don't really. Have you seen him have any sort of mid-range, really other than a three and shoot a three and dunk it?
Does he need to have it, or can he just drive to the basket and get two guys come to him and then dish off?
I mean, it's possible. What I heard, I thought was kind of interesting. Put Tum Tum maybe in the middle. See what he can do.
Maybe.
And he can dish it, and he's not going to – what was Ben Carter doing? Setting screens? I don't really know what he brings.
Well, that's what Izzo said after the game, that Carter – that's what they liked about him, is that he was moving the ball well. But my biggest thing is, and I know we've criticized Bridges a lot, but you have two dudes, in Jaren Jackson and Miles Bridges, that are going to be lottery picks. They're playing in the NBA next year for sure. I think they're going to be good NBA players and have an impact. How do you not – go through them? How do you not put one of those guys at the free throw line? Everyone knows the way that you beat a zone is you put guys at the free throw lines or at the elbows and you get them the ball. Even if all they do is get the ball and kick it right back out, you have to get the ball to the free throw line. And you've got two dudes that are going to be high draft picks in the NBA next year. How do you not put one of those guys at the free throw line and just put the ball through them? Even if all you do is get the ball to him and pass it back out, that is the way to beat it. I went back earlier today and watched when Michigan played Syracuse in the Final Four in 2013, and they kind of torched that zone. That's what they did. They put Mitch McGarry and Glenn Robinson III at the elbows and at the free throw line, and they just kept giving them the ball, and those dudes made plays. They kicked it out for threes. They drove to the basket, and I don't know what Izzo's strategy was, but he deserves all the criticism that he's getting because he got out-coached, and they blew a chance at a national championship opportunity.
I couldn't agree with you more, and I've always been – I mean, I don't want to run Izzo out of town, but he had a bad game, and I think the slappy reporters in this state had no balls to just flat out ask him what your strategy is.
I saw that you I was going to bring this up later. I kind of had this in queue, but
okay.
I saw that you had a tweet that said, I still have my Final Four teams remaining.
Yeah.
And I was going to quote tweet that and say, well, you didn't interview Tom Izzo, did you? What is going on?
You don't understand that at all? No, I don't have a necessary. Let me put it to you this way. When that game is over, and it's hard to ask a losing coach hard questions. But, if you watch that game, isn't the first question you have, hey, Tom, what was the strategy with your lineup today? How do you play Ben Carter so many minutes over Jackson in the middle? I mean, you can phrase the question and ask him, what was your mindset? Nobody asked him that question. Everybody's intimidated. I heard one Detroit news reporter ask him, and he was kind of whining like a little kid, like he was totally intimidated what Izzo was going to tell him. He says, Tom, you think you'll be back coaching this team next year? That was his question.
I'd love to see that beef. Did you get a response on that, by the way?
On Twitter?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, what really drove that? One of our fans of this podcast, and also a Twitter follower of mine, he was all over it all week long. He was hammering people like Jim Rome and other local people. Why wasn't Izzo asked that question? And I happen to 100% agree with him.
Yeah, one guy, I'm not sure if you guys have ever listened to him at all, Mike Valenti. He's a radio guy out of Detroit.
He's the only one.
Yeah, he's a Sparty alum, and he's one of the biggest Sparty slappies that I've ever listened to or whatever. But he actually did go on a pretty good rant criticizing Izzo, and it's pretty good. But, you talked about him against big-time coaches. It's crazy that, he has all the success, all the Final Fours and, all that kind of stuff, whatever. He's 1-11 against Coach K, 0-7 versus Roy Williams. Now he's 1-5 versus Jim Boeheim. Those are three of the best coaches in college basketball, of all time. And Izzo is just flat out getting owned by those guys. And really now, after this year, he's 11-9 versus Beeline, so he's got 2 games on him. But Beeline came into Michigan when Michigan was in a lot of trouble. So really Beeline has really turned things around. So against the elite coaches, Izzo really gets out-coached a lot and doesn't have a lot of success. So So he deserves all the criticism. He can recruit like crazy and sell his program, but he doesn't develop the talent like we've talked about, and he gets out-coached in games a lot. He doesn't make adjustments. He sticks to his game plan, and his substitutions are weird. So,
yeah.
Hey, man, people, they want to stick to that national championship that happened 20 years ago. That's fine with me, and they've made a bunch of Final Fours, but he's getting out-coached a lot, and he's got so much talent on that team. They're really underachieving.
Yeah, and the substitution is not really getting a lot of press, but it bothers me that. But Matt McQuaid, he won me over.
Yeah,
Won me over. He was the only guy that did not lose his mind that game.
I probably would have somewhere maybe 5-6 games ago started McQuaid.
All I know is that like I remember like a 11 or 10 minute mark, like he subbed him out, and I breathed a sigh of relief.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared of him. That guy, he's got some balls. I just feel like you got to keep him out there. This is why he's on the team,
right?
To be a zone buster.
He's a shot maker, and he in a few games, and even against Michigan when the games were tight, he knocked down some shots. So yeah, he might be that guy that you could have put in there to hit a couple big shots, but instead he wanted to play Ben Carter, who sounds like he should be playing lacrosse somewhere. I mean, I don't know, like. He barely played all year, 6 minutes a game, and you've got a guy, Jaren Jackson, that's going to be a lottery pick, and an upperclassman in Nick Ward. I mean, he's not like a superstar, but he can play sitting on the bench. And I don't know. I just think Izzo, I don't know if he's past his prime or if he's kind of lost his edge or something, but something's going on there because to be one of the most talented teams in the country and to continually be coming up short. I mean, it's got to reflect on the coach a little bit, don't you think?
Yeah, this one's got to hurt him real bad and maybe has him look at what his next step is going to be. I mean, he has full say, I think, to do whatever he wants. He'll be at Michigan State for as long as he needs to be, but does he really want to? Could you see him maybe saying, you know what, this is enough stress on me and my family. Why don't I try broadcasting for a while? I mean, that seems to be the natural transgression, but he is pretty good. He's pretty down to earth, and I've seen him in the interview situations before. He could easily do it. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen, but he has that option.
Yeah, and like you said, he could definitely. I mean, he's almost on that like Joe Paterno level, like he was at Penn State. I mean, Izzo would never get fired. They would never ask him to step down. It's up to him whenever he wants to leave. But I mean, I was going to ask you guys something. I knew we were going to get to Izzo and Michigan State and everything. So I was going to ask you guys something. A criticism that used to always happen for Michigan fans, specifically the Michigan football fans, were that we lived in the past, that, we talked about the all-time records and the national championship that happened in 1997. And people just always say, you always lived in the past. Is that happening with Michigan State basketball? I mean, their national championship was 20 years ago, and they have been to some Final Fours, but recently, in 10 years, they haven't had a ton of success. They've won some games, but Izzo now in his last 11 games in March is 4-7. They keep getting bounced in the first weekend. So is it fair to start saying that Michigan State fans with Izzo, they're kind of living in the past, similar to what they used to say about Michigan football fans?
I think that's entirely possible.